All right.
What did she say? Congrats, Dr. Grigsby. Looks like she wrote it on an envelope.
Great. Fantastic. Ready? Not yet? All right. Amy, I'd like to call to order, please.
Director Admin,
Here.
Director Faulkner,
Here.
Director Goodman. Here. Director Morgan,
Here.
Director Petroff. Here. Vice President Brown,
Here.
and President Cuneo.
Here. All right, if we can, let's have a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you for all those on Zoom or on live. We're having live streaming. And we've already had the roll call. We've had establishment of a quorum. We first start with public comments. And on public comments, we set up aside for board policy up to 30 minutes of each Board of Education business meeting to hear public comments. Board of Education values your input. Thanks you for your comments. Now, each comment is limited to 3 minutes to address any item that's a legitimate part of the business of the board. No confidential or personnel-related topics are allowed. The comments, because we don't have public at this meeting, at least in live at this meeting, comments will be read in order that they are received by email. The contents of the email and the sender's name have been submitted to the Secretary of the Board and will become a part of the official public record of this meeting. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Okay. The first comment we have tonight is from Ann Ultridge. And it is, to whom it may concern. My name is Ann Ultridge, and I am a self-contained K-5 special education teacher in the Melville School District. I'm very curious how social distancing will be addressed in a self-contained setting. Many students have close proximity to an adult, edible or tangible reinforcement and physical crossing listed as an accommodation in their IEP. Not social distancing increases our chances of getting COVID and are having to quarantine. This will directly affect the amount of PTO time I would have to use due to more exposure compared to other types of teachers who are able to social distance. If SSD is requiring us to use PTO when needing to quarantine, we should be expected to follow the same social distancing guidelines without expectations to this rule. Or we should not have to use PTO time if exposure occurs because social distancing is not what is best, or it can't safely be implemented for our student population. I look forward to hearing and appreciate your thorough response that addresses these points of safety and concern. The second comment is from Paul Kaufman to the honorable members and administrators for special school districts. I was disheartened to learn that it was under consideration to impose a contract for the upcoming year at this board meeting. This is after decisions were made to adopt a new insurance plan that will nearly double deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses for employees to save $1.4 million. In addition, further cost-cutting measures include eliminating tuition reimbursement from the budget without meeting SDNEA, as the joint resolution indicated. All of these harmful actions are being done while the district has over $70 million above the stated board goals of 45% in reserves. I would ask our respected board members to consider the following facts that occurred during negotiations when there is a pledge for transparency and good faith. 1, a joint survey was created and approved by both teams to the issue before the COVID-19 closures. This survey was supposed to be sent out by the district to ask employees how much of their plan time was being used that was not self-directed. Without protected plan times, members were working far more hours than partner district teachers outside the school day. The data from this survey was going to be used to address workload and compensation. This survey was never sent by the district. 2, in the prior joint resolution, there was a written pledge to address the inadequacies of the salary schedule through the formation of a joint committee, including members of SBNEA and SSD. The district did not meet with SBNEA to form this committee. 3, despite pledges made during this negotiation to address extreme variances in the salary schedule, where some members were getting less than 2% in some steps, the district did not come to the table with their own salary schedule proposal to address these inequities. SBNEA presented multiple revised salary schedules. All were rejected. 4, during negotiations, SBNEA asked for the results of the annual employee engagement survey issued by SSD that addressed the level of employees' recognition, the level of support, the level of morale, and employee self-confidence level in district leadership. Key indicators in the past 2 surveys revealed a downward trend in all of the above areas. The current survey results were not given to the negotiating team despite multiple requests. The results were also not shared back with SSD employees, as it had been in prior years. Before presenting their best and final offer to SBNEA, SSD presented their annual budget to be approved by the Governing Council for 2020-2021. The salary figure representing the misleading 3% increase that was presented that evening reflected the offer that was later presented to SBNEA. If negotiations were done in good faith, it seems the inverse would have occurred. In the landmark Missouri Supreme Court case of American Federation of Teachers versus Ledbetter, the Missouri Supreme Court issued the following ruling. Under Missouri law, good faith is not an abstract thing, but it is a concrete quality descriptive of the motivating purpose of one's act or conduct when challenged or called in question. Parties act in good faith when they act without simulation or pretense, innocently and in an attitude of trust and confidence. Those parties act honestly, openly, sincerely, without deceit, covert, or any form of fraud. Good faith is just a term understood by federal law. Is not just a term understood by federal law. In the spirit of acting in good faith, I would implore the board members to reflect on Judge Breckenridge's words above and ask the SSD negotiations team to return to the table. It is not a waste of time to discuss giving employees a true cost of living raise that is not matched by an inaccurate financial offer. The inaccuracies include not removing retirees from the full-time employee count and adding all new hires on a bachelor plus 20 step 8 figure as a cost estimate method. These 2 actions alone will short SSD employees over $2 million from this best and final offer and place the district offer well under 3% when the true employee count and salary steps are entered later. SSD employees lost $2.4 million in promised salary during the last round of negotiations because of this practice, as the 3.28% that was promised last time came in under 3% as well. SSD certified employees, unlike administrators, don't have an indexed salary schedule which guarantees a minimum cost of living increase each year. Considering that administrators just received an additional 2% raise on top of their indexed salary steps, they will make out much better than what is on the table for teacher-level staff. Please rectify past these mistakes and show your employees and the general public that you understand and you care. Your decisions will reveal the level of good faith you have in your employees and if their good faith in you is warranted in return. Comment number 3 is from Lindsay Kurtz. Dear SSD Board of Directors, my name is Lindsay Amen. I'll choose a different last name. And I am a school psychologist with the district and a taxpayer. I am writing because I find it incredibly insulting that SSD will not come to mediation regarding salary schedules for next year. Every year, school psychologists, teachers, SLPs, teacher assistants, and other related services are asked to take on more responsibilities. We do this because we want what is best for students and the district. We do this even though it often means working at home many nights and using our own money to purchase supplies. I myself have worked long hours at home at night while pregnant in order to meet deadlines because I needed to prioritize working with students over paperwork during the school day. We take on these responsibilities at times when it puts us at odds with our partner districts. We deserve to be supported by SSD. SSD has a monopoly over special education in this area, and it is not a simple matter as finding a new employer if we are unhappy. We do not have the options, as do other teachers in St. Louis County, of finding a new district that will support us. As you all know, there is much concern over the upcoming school year with regard to our personal health. Additionally, at some point, we will likely be providing e-learning and working at home while taking care of our families. This requires sacrifice, and it is important for SSD to recognize all of our efforts. The videos of support that were sent last spring ring hollow when the district refuses to go to mediation and to use some of the significant funding in the reserve to back up these claims with a pay increase. I have always been proud of my work and to work for SSD, and there is still time for the board to change their stance on this so that I can continue to feel this pride. The next public comment is from Denise Hill, Board of Education. I am a longtime employee of the special school district. I am proud to serve our students on a daily basis. I am extremely disappointed that the board has refused to return to the table to negotiate for teacher salaries. According to your meeting minutes, a 2% increase was approved for administrators and a 3% for other business professionals. Yet there is no regard for those of us working in the classroom on a daily basis. During the COVID-19 closure, we were thrown into a difficult situation and found ways to provide services to our students while meeting the additional demands placed upon us to document our time, attend both partner district Zoom meetings and SSD Zoom meetings, and providing as much face-to-face instruction as possible. Your lack of willingness to negotiate even a cost of living increase, while more than doubling our insurance deductibles and removing tuition reimbursement, is going to result in a loss in income for many of us. This shows a total disregard for the important work we do. With more than $300 million in reserve, I feel the students in special school districts deserve teachers that are respected and not needing to work a second job to make ends meet. Students deserve teachers who are respected and appreciated, not disregarded and ignored. The next comment is from Christina Baker, SSD Board of Education. I am very concerned about a letter being distributed from Human Resources. In it, the Chief Human Resource Officer informed staff that leave under the New Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA, is not available to any district employee because the FFCRA does not cover large employers with 500 or more employees. This appears to be incorrect information. I have verified with the Labor and Wage Division of the Department of Labor in St. Louis that the 500 employee rule of the law only applies to private employers and that public employers such as school districts are absolutely covered under this law. I'm very disappointed that Human Resources of such a large employer such as SSD is not fully versed on the recent basic labor laws that seem pretty clear to the average layperson. Other large school districts, such as St. Louis Public Schools, have already provided information about their rights under this law to their employees. In a time where school staff have to possibly consider putting their own health and lives and that of their families in jeopardy in order to continue working, I would hope that the least SSD could do would be to provide accurate information to employees about their rights. I have enclosed the letter that has circulated as well as the employee rights poster from the Department of Labor. This poster has been available on SSD Live. If Human Resources has questions about being covered under this law, the Department of Labor suggests they call or look online for the information as it is publicly available. I've also included a link to the guidance from the National Law Review, which outlines how school districts are covered, as well as an article from Education Week. I work at a large school district with more than 500 employees. Do employees in my school district qualify for federal paid leave? All local and state government employees, including teachers, administrators, staff, and other school employees, are eligible. I would ask that the board encourage the district to provide correct information to its employees regarding this law, as well as check for any other district oversights regarding the rights of employees as outlined in the joint resolution. The next comment is from Angie Mort. I'm working on my master's degree in special education. I want to have the most knowledge and able to be the best teacher possible for my students. Education and information is imperative for this to happen. I will not be able to continue my education without tuition reimbursement. Our students deserve the most qualified staff available to help them reach their full potential. The next comment is from Danielle Thrall. If I could tell the board members something, I would like you to come and teach in the classroom with limited resources, where I buy materials and provide many resources due to there not being enough funds. I would like for you to be treated and disrespected the way that special educators are by students and parents. I would like for you to feel as though you are making a difference when you are constantly understaffed, dealing with behaviors while trying to have structure in your classroom. I would like you to be questioned by parents as to why their child does not have access to all the resources they need. I would like you to be questioned whether you are doing right by their children, and whether their IEP is being fully implemented with fidelity. I would like for you to come and do the impossible every day. The next comment is from Jean Hannick. As we prepare for the upcoming school year, I was wondering what the board's policy will be regarding the need to quarantine for any reason, realizing that there are increased cases in all aspects and all ages. I know that the latest communication stated that we would be more than likely expected to use our sick pay first, even though we may not be sick, but attempting to curb the spread. I also understand that we may apply for the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA, our family medical leave. It is my understanding with even those programs, we are required to use our sick leave first or in conjunction. Knowing that there is a surplus of funds, could not some of those funds be set aside to be classified as hazard pay or emergency leave, such as snow days? This is especially significant since the board is no longer negotiating further with the SDNEA regarding pay increases. I am one of those teachers that is at the top of the scale, and realizing that I will only receive $1,000 or approximately 1%, and will then also be required to use my sick leave when I need to quarantine for public safety, is truly not acceptable. SSD talks about 3% increases, but I have not seen that, and yet have worked 25 years for this district through a variety of school administrators, principals, area coordinators, and a variety of difficult situations, including increased student behavior. Despite all of that, the board only sees fit to offer a 1% raise when the funds are available. As a taxpayer, what is your rationale for all of this? Thank you for listening. The next public comment is from Lisa Wirtz-Hampton, SSD Board and Administration. I ask each and every one of you to please attend the first week of school in a building throughout St. Louis County and the North County region where teachers and students, when we return to the classroom building. As a board member, have you been to Rittner High School? I know the new superintendent has walked through the building once during the 1920 school year. We cannot continue to run schools as businesses and only those at the top getting salary increases. Do you want to be able to get quality candidates in the classroom? As a taxpayer in St. Louis County, we vote to increase our taxes and for our school board members to keep our local schools accredited, safe, and equipped with quality employees. I pay a lot of money in taxes in North County to Special School District and Rittner School District, and both have a pretty healthy surplus of funds. As we negotiate back and forth in regards to teacher salaries, please consider all the unexpected costs of protecting your most valuable assets of education, students, and teachers. Teachers and students want to return to the classroom, but not without the district supplying all the necessary personal protection equipment and environmental protection agency registered household disinfectants. As teachers, we are nickel and dimed out to supply our classrooms with supplemental curriculum materials but do not complain because we know the materials will increase the students' learning to reach their full potential and academic goals. Remember that teachers are the soldiers in the field of education. Thank you. The next public comment is from Tammy Pence, Dear SSD Representative. Hello, my name is Tammy Pence. I have been with SSD for 6 years. I submitted a letter for the last board meeting regarding the FFCRA and the requirements to begin work in the office with little advance notice. 4 days notice on June 25th, but start on July 1st. It did not make the cut for a reading. I appreciate and am grateful for the reverse decision on July 13th for staff being able to access the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This will apply to me, given I have to care for my 10-year-old who has no school and her camps have been canceled. Since we had to return to the office July 1 with little notice, I ended up having to use my paid time off in order to care for her, thus resulting in me only being able to work the allowable 2 days per week from home, and resulting in decreased productivity in completing my work past due. Enrollment for child camps begin in January, and often camps are filled by March. Securing child care is not something that can quickly be completed. I have tried enrolling her 4 times already for camps to cover all weeks of summer, searching for camps, enrolling, paying, and then the camp getting canceled. My husband and I are not from St. Louis. We have no family here and limited friend group, so that is not an option for us. Our neighbors are health compromised. I cannot find a daycare for elementary age students. I am still concerned about the requirement to be back in the offices when we do not have in-person time with students and teachers until August. It seems silly to have to sit in a cubicle with a face mask on to Zoom meet with others, especially since the St. Louis County Health Department encourages being able to work remotely when possible. If I was allowed to work from home, I could do both, ensure the safety and care for my daughter, and continue my work rather than take time off. If the concern is about monitoring staff productivity, our department produces many permanent product proof of work, written programs, data sheets, visuals, token boards, reports, logs of parent contact, online lesson plans, ABA books before and after pictures, etc. These could be submitted as proof of work. I believe there is software out there can also track employee time on a computer if that is the aim. Lastly, I am concerned that the schools are spending so much time preparing for in-person services and not on how to teach teachers how to improve distance learning, which I am concerned we will have to do. I understand this has been challenging and difficult to make plans and trying to move back to some normalcy, which we need to do, but I feel no one is acknowledging the hardships their decisions are placing on working parents and health-compromised individuals. Thank you for listening. Our last public comment is from Elizabeth Witter. 3 weeks after my last public comment, I continue to find myself disheartened by the actions and leadership from the board and upper administration, especially in regard to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Yesterday, there was a release of information regarding the district's approval of employees to access the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. However, on July 9th, Amy Schechter sent out a memo to the district emphasizing that leave under the new FFCRA is not available to any district employee because the FFCRA does not cover large employers with 500 or more employees. While I am grateful for qualifying for the FFCRA, I would like direct comment from Amy Schechter why this decision was so suddenly overturned. As a direct impact of this error, I had been told to take PTO to cover hours or days in which I did not have adequate childcare and am mandated to be working at the office. The district is now required to make an employee's PTO whole as soon as possible in fulfillment of the obligations under SSDRA. I expect direct communication from Amy Schechter regarding the timeline of fulfilling these obligations. Because of the temporary period of non-enforcement of FFCRA ended on April 17th, the district should have had policies in place prior to requiring employees to come back to in-office work. This is an egregious error, and I would expect the Chief Human Resources Officer to explain the decisions she is making that deeply impact her employees. I love my job, I love the students and the teams I have the privilege of working with. I do expect to be treated in accordance with the law, respectfully. And that is it for tonight.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for making comments. And we have heard those, and we will look at those again. Would someone like the motion to approve the agenda, please? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, superintendent's report, distance learning plan review, please.
All right, so we've got 4 different presentations for all of you. The first one is about our distance learning plan review. This is a review of the information that we see, feedback with our committees that focuses on when we did our initial first shutdown. And so our Chief Academic Officer, Wendy Pendergrass, will update the board on that. And then take questions afterwards.
Okay. Good evening, President Cuneo, Board of Directors, Dr. Keenan. My name is Wendy Pendergrass. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. I would like to share with you this evening our distance learning plan review. So I'll start out with the members. We followed a process that was very similar when we do action research. We started with students that were across the district, from partner districts, tech schools, and special education schools. We started with families countywide, special education paraprofessionals from both partner districts and SSD schools, special education teachers from both schools and partner districts, and then special education-related staff. We did these through Zoom, through phone calls, and it was across the district. We also performed surveys, and to give you the numbers of the surveys, we received 10,379 feedback surveys, which was more than a 50% response rate. Of those voices, there were approximately 94 administrators. There were 1,458 teachers and related services. Those were combined. 91 court and career technical education teachers, 8,423 families, and 313 students. And those students, again, were from countywide partner districts, special education schools, and career tech schools. We then had a focus group. We met, I had some of the leads meet with specific people. Alan Wheat met with related service staff. Molly Bolton met with special education teachers. Kelly Grigsby met with paraprofessionals. All 3 of these, we asked for administrators to provide us information of good voices that could provide us very good information and be willing to meet with us via Zoom. All the groups focused on communication, and that would be communication multiple ways, communication as the distance learning plans went out, communication from central office, communication with our families, and then professional learning and training. Alan also discussed with his related service staff the changes. There's a lot of vocabulary, vocabulary definitions when it comes to teletherapy. So we will further clarify what that is the need for delivering the direct instruction, which is truly what our students need. And we will also be able to develop, define, and support with the action team. So we will be looking very, very strategically how to support those services. So the dynamic learning map overview looked at particular areas. We looked at engagement from a standpoint of direct support with teachers, how engaging were the lessons, how difficult when some decisions were made was the disengagement of our students. So at what point did we find it a struggle for our students to become disengaged? The communication piece is key. The communication piece, of course, from leadership as this was rolling out. From staff to families, the difficulties that we had, or the some ways that we could avoid communication with families, and staff to students. So how was it in Zoom meetings? How was it in creating the plans? What activities was it for the students that did not have access to technology? The difficulties for teachers to make sure those activities were getting home to families. The process itself, so looking at the distance learning plan itself, the workload, the sheer size of the workload, and the partner district collaboration. We also listed technology, access to families and students, and access for staff. The partnerships that we have with some of our partner districts when it comes to accessing technology is something we also are looking at. And then, of course, the instruction piece, our expectations when we're doing the dynamic learning maps, the execution of the dynamic learning maps to our families and to our students, and then the suitability. Did the dynamic learning maps work for a variety of people, a variety of students? So here's what went well. We heard continually from our families that they understood the situation overall and recognized the extreme circumstances. There were a lot of challenges going on, and they were reasonably understanding the situation that we were in. 90% of our families responded felt activities were appropriate or accessible to their children. 90% of students surveyed felt supported by the district during the learning plans. 63% of families and 79% of students indicated that they had contact with the teacher at least 2 or more times per week. 92% of administrators reported that they were able to provide some support to their teachers when they were having difficulty working with their families. Staff truly appreciated the video and the walkthroughs that Alan Wheat performed. So knowing that there was a video tool that teachers could access, they appreciated. 88% of special education reported information pulled from Phoenix, which is our district's IEP platform, was accurate. So what happened is every couple of weeks, the DLP would pull exactly information from Phoenix, so the teachers wouldn't have to recreate that. So 88% of the time, all of that stuff was accurate. Now for the recommendations. When we speak for engagement, we really need to look at professional learning on how to engage students during a virtual learning instruction. If we have to go back, what are some tools, what are some engagement strategies that we can use with our students in order to engage them successfully? And then also to support our community and resources for our families. We heard a variety of families needing extra resources when shelter in place happened, when we were doing the distance learning. They were struggling with some activities. So what kind of supports and resources we can provide for our families? With communication, asking families the preferred method of contact. So establishing at the beginning the relationship that you would have. Would it be best that we email? Would it be best that you have phone calls? Would there be certain times of the day that would be best for you to reach out to? One clear voice of contact. We had heard several times that with some of our students, there are multiple related service and teacher providers. Several people were calling them continually, and it became overwhelming. So how can we alleviate that by all of the communication going through one person or limited people? Consistent message about expectations. and delivery with staff and families. I think knowing what we know now, we were truly trying to build a program when there wasn't a lot to move on. We were adding things, we were changing things, there was a lot of communication. So by having a great guidance plan, by having clear directions and expectations, that will truly improve the process. And then, of course, our directors will play a key role with continuing to work with partner districts in order to the collaboration between if they have district learning plans compared to our district learning plans and the multiple platforms, because several districts use different platforms. Recommendations when it comes to instruction is provide a structure or some type of structure on how to engage students during, I need to change my paper, sorry. There we go. Provide structures to make access to families more accessible. So providing links to the activities. For several of the learning plans, there were multiple activities, there were different tools that we would use. It would be great if we could provide all of those resources in one plan in one location for easier access. Meeting the needs of students with significant disabilities. We heard that over the time that distance learning plans or virtual learning is not the best way for all of those students at all the different times. So really bringing everyone back to the chalkboard, understanding what that's going to look like, understanding staff the opportunity to program and print and make copies and deliver is something that we're looking at. Making activities more integrated into home environment. As you all know, we have 18 to 21, a large population of 18 to 21. So when we sheltered in place and the majority of them were on the workforce, how can we build those activities and those working skills into the home? And how can those activities in general be built to what's going on in the home? Keep the one-day plan of collaboration. We didn't start off with that, but as we started moving through the process, we realized that there was a lot of collaboration. A few of the districts did 4 days of direct instruction and 1 day for staff to have meetings with related service, IEP meetings, action plans, meetings with their administrators. That's one thing that they ask if we move forward that we consider. And provide guidance on how to effectively utilize paraprofessionals during the instruction or during the closing. Did you have a question? We're currently working right now on a more rigorous dynamic learning plan. What we know is that our students need us, and they need to have access to the learning, and they need to continue to learn. So we are in hopes by all of this information to truly provide the appropriate guidance for all levels in the district for all of our students, so our students can learn along with their families if we would have to do this. For technology, we know that professional learning for families, for staff, and students will need to be done. We were thrown in, several of our teachers went to using Google Classroom, although that was an option for us in the schools. And in some of the areas, it wasn't mandated. We found out that that is a great tool that we can use. There needs to be some training, both on teacher side, parent side, student side, and families. Ensuring families and students have access to technology. So thinking of what does that look like? So what we did try is that we had multiple drop-off days. We asked families to come and pick up. Are there other ways that we can get those supplies home? We're looking into those different avenues. Video database for teachers and families. As was shared earlier, some families work during the day. They were able to provide some type of support in the afternoon. They asked for videos to be available to help their students in the afternoon or evening for those times when students could access it. So teachers aren't available at night, but there would be a video recording those activities. And so that was requested. And provide a list of technology tools to assist with all the accommodations. There are so much tools out there, but we also need to teach parents how to access those. We need to teach parents how to access the text-to-speech, the speech-to-text. Those trainings need to happen. So I can say without a doubt that I've worked with Doug and Mark, so thank you very much. And we are feverishly ordering more and more technology, more Chromebooks, and more hotspots in case we have to do this. Now I open for questions, please. Yes, ma'am.
So the education that will have to be done for the parents, how far in advance would that have to be from the go date of online learning?
So we are building a video library right now that parents could access. That was a very particular voice that was heard that was struggling with all of the litany, especially with the different platforms amongst the districts, that we need to make sure those videos are there. So we're creating a video library for them.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I got a couple questions. On the video library, how do we access it?
We're going to have to teach people how to access it and make sure you have the equipment.
We're gonna,
Very similar to Dr. Cuneo, I'm sorry, Dr. Cannon, very similar when you ask for how the toolkits for families on how to access Zoom, providing those like a quick start card for families that we could send home, but then also having them being able to log into a site or a particular place where all of those resources would be available.
Wendy, and then I have a question, and if you can't answer it, I understand. This is, to what extent during that from March to now, when we've lost a little more than a semester probably, to distance learning, what percentage do you think the kids learn? Do you think they'll end at a 50%, a 70%? If you could give me an overall figure. How much do you think they're losing in the school year by going distance learning?
I cannot honestly answer that.
Because I understand that we're not going to have standardized tests, so I don't know what effect this has in the long run. That's what I was trying to look at.
And I think none of us do. I would hate to make a statement and be wrong. I think what I do know is that our staff from every aspect in this district worked tirelessly trying to provide learning.
I am not doubting that.
So
I think a child learns better when he's in school than with other people. I think this is a fantastic backup plan, and I am not knocking this at all.
absolutely.
But I like numbers. And I was trying to look at, if we have to do this for another year, or if we have to do this at a half a year. You know, I think this is really fluid because I don't think we have a set timeline. I want to know, are our kids, are not just our kids, every student, are they losing 6 months out of education?
Right.
Is it, and if it is it maybe those individuals with families with greater resources don't lose as much or may even gain more because they get an individual attention, they're getting pumped at home, the concentration work. If you have families that don't have the same income, and both parents are working and they're fighting to survive, and they might have 3 or 4 kids all fighting to get on, to get a Chrome, or to get on their internet, and their bandwidth isn't any good, how bad do they go down?
Yeah, and I think that's what we struggle with the most when we're making these decisions and trying to plan, because our students and families need us, and the work that we do in the district is phenomenal. But what does that look like? How, and that's why we're focusing on making that distance learning plan, if we would have to do that, much more rigorous, much more, base it on assessment, having a grading process, having items like that to where we could possibly try to measure what students are getting.
See, I don't want to sound cynical, but
I know how you love assessment.
I'm basically cynical. But I also feel that one of the reasons why we are not testing now is because we don't want to know. Not just us. I don't think the states want to know. I don't think the federal government wants to know how much this has cost us learning-wise. And therefore, let's not test and find out.
Yeah, that's why I think this process was so important, because if we have to do this again, we want to build the best possible plan for our teachers and our paras and our students to be successful, for them to receive instruction as closely as if they were standing in the classroom with us.
I watch you for your work on this. I just hope that if we do distance learning again, it is time limited, and we're not talking an entire semester.
I agree. I agree.
Thank you.
My question is, even though we're calling it distance learning, the reality is there's going to be a need for hands-on instruction, regardless, even with the parents. Dr. Cunha and I oftentimes, even in getting our Zooms up, have to get the aides and assistants to do that. So I could imagine that in that situation, there's going to be a considerable amount of need for hands-on, regardless, even to the point of accessing the information that we're saying that we're offering through a library. How are we going to handle that?
And we are working that. Right now, I don't have an answer for you on that, but it's hard for me to teach you how to access technology if you don't have it or you don't know how to use that technology. So we're trying to figure that out safely for the staff that would be providing that support.
So if I were to use the information, Doctor, that you just asked in the question, let's look at 2 years. 2 years of lost time in reference to these students that we're looking at and the fact that school is probably going to close down within the first 2 weeks that we open back up. And therefore, we're going to have these particular problems, and it's going to take us basically 2 years to be able to try to get, before our society gets back to a point to where we can be close to what a normal is that we have. But that's a long time, and that can have a great effect on our society and learning. It's going to have a great effect on how we go about measuring the value of education in the public system. And so I know that we don't have the answers because this has never happened before, but in reference to how we go about trying to get this, that means that we will have to go through a trial and error. And the sooner we are able to put it into trial, the quicker we can make the errors. We try to shorten that space. But right now, it seems to me from the conversations I'm having, both in the state and hearing from the national, you're looking at close to 18 months to 2 years.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, ma'am?
When you refer to the surveys, and the graph and the groups on page 3 and page 7,
Yes, ma'am.
you have that broken out by special school, partner district?
Yes, the best we could possibly do, break them out, is there were 313 student information specifically. We have about 3 to 5 students that we can tell were from technical schools. We have about 179, 181 students that were from our SSD buildings, and then 134 from partner districts. That's how that broke down, the breakdown was for students.
Did you have any idea about the families?
Well, we were.
Are they
So a large population of our surveys were, as I noted in there, the response rates were inclusive of families advocating for their students. I don't have that number, but we can go back through and try to find that for you.
That's all right. Okay, so then do you have any idea what the number of students are who are having difficulty accessing the technology?
We are in the process of trying to figure out exactly how many students we did not reach. I think we roughly have a number, but we need to validate that.
Okay.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
put that on a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
And how you're going to be addressing their needs
Yes, ma'am.
specifically?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, on our parent side, and I didn't mean to monopolize, somebody else wants to, please, take it. But if not, I'm gonna jump in, I'll take it. We have the parent classes, the parent education programs. Could we set something up on how to teach parents if this in fact occurs, where we could teach parents how to access a computer, how to do some real basic stuff, how to operate Zoom? I guess my line is that if they didn't, that we have some students that didn't have a computer at home, that were taking home Chromes. Why would I expect their parents to know what's going on? They've never had it. I also, it took me a while to figure out how to get to Zoom and what to do. And I still don't know how to do all this stuff. I would like You know, I would think a nice, you know, if we would work with this, with the parents and offer possibly something here, or, I don't know how you would do it online if they can't dealing with a computer, I mean, they'd have to come in. But it might be a good idea to be able to teach them, because they're gonna play a real important role in all this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We worry about teaching our teachers this, you know, because you may be an excellent teacher, but if you've never had to do it on Zoom, and you never had to play with all the little figures and how to stick this up and that up there, I mean, you're learning all of that. I can't imagine a poor parent trying to figure out all of a sudden, okay, I got this, now what do I do?
Yes, yes. That is heard loud and clear and in process, absolutely.
We have a breakdown of all of the student devices that we sent out to our students across by district. So, and we also have a breakdown with which ones we also offered hotspots. So we will be able to put that in the Friday memo for you to be able to see that. We are continuing to make sure that we have the accessibility for our students, and that is also meeting not only the computers but the hotspots. We also want to make sure that we're assessing if there's 3 students in a family, that there's more than 1 computer. In some cases, some of the partner districts will give 1 computer to the family. We can help supplement some of those pieces of it. So the technology department has been working very diligently on making sure we have enough of these Chromebooks and that to be able to be available at the beginning of the year. There has been back orders because there's so many people trying to order laptops. But we do have a sufficient enough amount of computers right now to be able to provide for our new teachers and then for to start at the beginning of the year for our students. We do have a list. The largest group we gave out was to more tech students, and then our SSD schools. The other ones we averaged between 50 to 100 were like Kirkwood and Parkway districts. So we did offer additional support out to the partner districts too. I think there's a misnomer that we didn't provide computers, but we did, and the technology department set up contact-free pickup for the families to come and pick up the computers.
So, well, if this is in a different presentation, tell me, but will we have greater accountability for students learning? I know you talked about assessments, but, will we have greater accountability? I know before we talked about the North Tech students getting the computers, but the majority of them didn't bother to use them.
Well, the big thing around it right now is because this is, before DESE gave kind of like this hold harmless approach, right?
Right.
So we're feeling like people are saying if districts have to go back into distance learning, which a lot of larger districts have said, like San Diego, LA Unified, Atlanta, Nashville are all talking about that, or if not announced it, that there is going to be much more accountability in terms of we need to make sure that we have, if we are applying credits and grades, there needs to be that backup. So we did see where our teachers would continue to try to reach out to our families, but some of them just were like, we can't do this. We are just too overwhelmed. Some kids just checked out once they found out about the home harmless piece of it. But I think that a lot of districts are saying, let's try to apply some standardized methods to be able to track student progress, but also to methods to apply credits so that kids, when they're coming out of this, will have credits to be able to support them to go on, to the next grade level.
Okay.
So we're working through those pieces of it, but I will just say, though, that the feedback that we received from the different groups was very valuable, in that we had a lot of things that we were building as we were going into the shutdown, and we will have a one-stop place for families to go to and on our website and for our teachers to go to. So one of the things when I was checking in personally with our teachers, they wanted more resources from the partner districts to be able to access lessons. We will be able to provide that. We're going to be doing more video pieces of it so that we can watch, so teachers can learn how to access certain things, and to be able to help with their parents. We also heard that a lot of grandparents were taking care of the kids, so the advancement of technology was difficult, but we're going to try to make sure we're mitigating that as much as possible if we have to do a shelter in place or distance learning again.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Plans for reopening schools.
All right, this is our big one. This is more high level. We're gonna get more into the details, and I've been very honest with our team over the last couple weeks. Things have been changing daily, so I just want, the board to know, and I want our staff to know, and our families to know that we are continuing to make sure that we have flexible plans based on the current, COVID numbers and based on the safety of returning to school. Our intent was really to make sure we could reopen schools, and when I was talking with teachers at the end of May and June, I think they were ready to do that, but now that we're getting closer to the beginning of school, we still have a month left. But we want to make sure that we are, being flexible enough to see if we get closer to the opening of school, what will that look like if it's safe for kids to come in. Our big concern right now is how do you socially distance in some of our classrooms? There is a physical space that's okay, but we know that the needs of our students require closer proximity and additional care. So our team is going to talk about what we're going to be addressing, but we're going to provide very in-depth, and we're going to get feedback from our teachers and from our schools and our staff about these are our proposed plans for if you're going to do a come back to school, and we include even like what does it look like for transportation. What if we do come back to school and offer choice for families to do distance learning if a parent doesn't want if a family doesn't want to send their kids. And then the third one is to be able to say is if we have to do 100% distance learning. So those are the three options that we're looking at. We're going, both Dr. Grigsby and Chiquita Macrillo will be talking about what our approach is going to be. But I will just say, when we were last spring, remember it was like we were thinking we were going to have to close, and then it was we closed and then they never reopened. So I think that it takes, one day can change everything. And we want to make sure that we are flexible with the changing of the times, and when I say it's unprecedented, it is unprecedented. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. We want to make sure our students and our staff are safe. So that's going to be our continued approach, and we'll be continuing to engage with the larger groups to be able to get feedback on this. And so I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Good evening, President Cuneo, Board of Directors, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Kelly Grigsby. I'm the Director of Schools and Programs.
Good evening, I am Chiquita Riddle. I am the Executive Director of Partner School District.
Thank you for having us. We're here tonight to talk to you primarily about reopening of schools, the planning we've been doing over the summer, but we are fully prepared to talk about three scenarios, and Dr. Keenan shared that with us as well. We've been seeking stakeholder feedback over the summer with regards to our plans and with our planning, as Wendy talked about with distance learning. Our commitment is very much to student and staff safety, and we also have to rely on being flexible. We have three scenarios: return to school with a hybrid model, which supports a family choice on whether to access distance learning or to return to school, and then 100% distance learning. But our focus tonight is really on highlighting the reentry planning that we've been doing over the summer.
With regards to partner districts, we have had 100% of our directors and our lead ACs to participate in the planning process with the partner districts to ensure that we are supporting our scholars as well as our staff in those classroom and school settings.
Our reentry planning has been based on communication with health department, CDC guidelines, and also with using the recently released return to school guidance, which there's a link to in the presentation. We've been drafting reentry plans for August and also supporting partner district reentry planning. School teams have been updating reentry plan templates and submitting those for use as well. And again, our goal is maximizing student safety, staff safety, and also visitor safety. So one of the main areas we've been looking at is health screening. That includes self-screening questions for our staff, temperature checks for all staff and visitors, also temperature checks for students before boarding buses, and then a procedure for using, for temperature checking students as they are dropped off by families. We have designated isolation rooms.
And with regards to our staff working in partner districts, we're working to follow the guidelines that are set forth by local, state, and federal guidelines in conjunction with those school districts as well as special school districts. So that is a process where we have to collect a lot of information to ensure that we're supporting the needs of all 22 school districts that we support.
Part of our plans is social distancing, so making sure that our staff are social distancing in break rooms, work rooms, common areas. Also providing social distancing on entry points and exit points for the building, bus lines, dismissal lines. For students in the classrooms, as Dr. Keenan indicated, it's difficult for some of our populations to be able to provide those social distancing measures, so how can we maximize that and still be able to provide support for our students with physical prompts and such. Arrival and departure procedures, so how do we unload buses safely, how do we board buses and dismiss safely, how do we enter and exit buildings, how do we feed students their meals, how do we get them to classrooms, keep them in a cohort, and protect them within that bubble. Field trips, assemblies, and community-based instruction was all a consideration as well, including VSP sites.
As Dr. Grisby has expressed, those same items are items that will be addressed within partner districts. And our staff, including our teacher-level staff, we are hoping will participate in this process to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to provide input and to feel comfortable with the decisions that are being made.
PPE, personal protective equipment. We are requiring at this time universal masking for all staff. We're providing cloth masks and a face shield for all staff. In addition, we've explored tiered access to PPE depending on level of interaction, physical interaction with students, whether in crisis, personal care, or a hand over hand, whatever the case may be. Again, we're providing masks and shields to all staff, gloves, gowns, shoe covering, and plexiglass, and shoe covering as needed, and plexiglass barriers in high traffic area, including our main offices, cafeteria lines, and other identified areas throughout the schools.
And in our partner districts, our staff, they are participating in the planning process again in this area. We want to ensure that we have an additional layer of resources provided to our staff in the event that they come to school and they don't have those items, or from the time they leave one classroom to their visit to the next classroom, that we're able to provide them with those resources as needed. We've also talked about ensuring that those resources make it within a timely fashion to those school districts and classrooms to ensure that there's never an opportunity for us not to have those items provided to staff. Through one-on-one conversations with all of the directors and lead ACs, in addition to surveys that I have provided to them, they have assured me that all districts plan to support our staff through this process, and they all have measures in place to support all students within those school districts.
Hold on 1 second before you switch it. One area that was not included in this presentation because of the guidance has changed is masking for students. So we are requesting that students over the age of 9 wear masks. We're hoping that they'll be provided from home, but we will have disposable masks accessible. Any students that would like to wear a mask, we're also encouraging that under the age of 9. But we're encouraging mask use over the age of 9.
And there are various processes and procedures that are being considered throughout the county for all of our partner districts, and we will support the processes that they put in place.
Sanitizing is also part of our plan. Hand washing schedules and lessons, teaching students how to wash hands appropriately, hand sanitizer in classrooms and common spaces, frequent sanitation of surfaces by staff and custodians, so making sure we have the supplies available, and also are working with our partner Clean Tech to sanitize spaces frequently. Cleaning protocols for custodians, both in general and if there's a positive case, and then providing signage for reminding and also just communication pieces throughout our buildings. Additional considerations, large group staff trainings, making sure we're continuing to social distance, how we're going to engage families in school events and maintain safety, limiting risk, community-based instruction and work sites, who's an essential visitor, encouraging virtual meetings as much as possible, and communicating frequently with staff and families.
In summary, we want to be thoughtful in the process of planning with regards to health screening within all of our special school district schools as well as in our partner district schools to ensure that social distancing is practiced, that we provide personal protective equipment to all staff and as needed to students who request those items as well. Sanitization to ensure that we have clean environments for our staff and students throughout the county, supporting our partner districts with whatever their needs might be that may be unique. We have provided to all of our ACs and lead ACs and directors a survey that allows us to receive information with regards to outliers. What are the unique differences from each school district that we must address to ensure that we are supporting the needs of our staff as well as our students within those districts. And then we will continue to take other considerations from our staff as well as our families and our community members as they provide that information to us as we received information tonight through this board meeting, and to ensure that we have open and effective communication throughout the district and the county. Are there any questions?
Real quick, so a lot of our students, even though they're biologically 9 and over, they're not intellectually 9 and over, and if they refuse to wear masks.
We won't be penalizing students for,
Okay.
we're excluding students for refusing to wear masks.
Okay.
We'll provide them and encourage it, but we will, and show them how to wear it properly, but we will not be excluding students if they refuse.
Okay.
Or cannot keep it on for some reason.
Okay. And then another thing, just about the picking up, when buses pick up and then you have to take their temperature, these kids, if we go back in August and September and it's 5 degrees out, if they're standing out at the bus stop, which may just be their end of their driveway, they get, I worry that they might look like they have a temperature when the, depending on the thermometer, when actually they're just hot and sweating from being outside.
That's definitely something we can know and talk with, Maureen about.
Yeah, or encourage, I don't know how many people have the availability, like if you're in an apartment building, but to stay inside until the bus arrives. But for those who have to be outside, for those who hop on, that could be deceptive.
And to also just consider allowable time for those students and their families to exit their homes and make it to the buses within that estimated time of the buses to arrive.
Right. Those are my two. Thank you.
You didn't mention this specifically, so I just wanted to check that. Do you have a policy in place for when inevitably a student or a student's family member tests positive for COVID-19 to identify those cases and then notifying contacts to try to limit the spread within the school?
We are going to work with the county health department on contact tracing. We're going to work with our HR, and then we will have a written communication plan on notifications and a consistent way we're communicating and with the identified people.
Will there be a policy for students who are exposed to that, exposed students?
With guidance for what we were going to be recommending. And they built that guidance into the guidance that the St. Louis County Health Department has recommended, and it's been issued through Sam Page's office, through the county commissioner. So we're utilizing that guidance. We haven't put it into policy, but it's definitely going to be a practice of guidance, in particular with our SSD.
In addition to that, the CDC is working on providing schools with reopening guidance as well, too.
Yep.
Just want to make sure there's a plan in place.
Yeah.
If picking up on that, though, if an individual has a temperature, is there a timeline before he's allowed to come back to school?
I don't have those specifics, but yes, that's outlined in our plans.
It is?
Yes.
Yep.
If an individual,
And so many days after the temperature goes down.
okay, but we have this,
Yes.
will we make sure that each parent gets this?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, I mean, I don't, it's not important that I get it, I want to make sure that the parents get it. The other thing I have a question for is, we have something that teaches children how to wash their hands.
We're writing lessons in our schools on hand washing frequency and process.
By the way, just as an aside, I saw one on Baby Shark that is disgustingly getting into your head. It never stops. But
We'll have clean
they have
hands
one
and
on
we'll be
washing
enjoying
hands.
that. That'll be great.
It's it's the curse of having a three-year-old grandchild. I know
feel your
more about
pain.
baby shark than I know about anything else of it. The other thing is, we have 22 districts, as you were saying. How different is our plans, because these are pretty generic here that I would say everyone should be utilizing,
Sure.
regardless are any districts much different than ours?
I think that only, because we meet, with the partner districts, we all meet every Wednesday at 9 o'clock on a Zoom. We've been doing that since the shutdown in the beginning of May. And we are wanting to make sure that we're providing consistent methods of how we're going to be approaching it. The guidance document that was provided through the St. Louis County Commissioner's Office was authored by several of our SSD, our countywide superintendents, and we all had a say in it. We all put our stamp on it. We all edited it and helped support it. So we have all agreed that we're trying to make sure that by July 20th, when we announce that we're pretty much trying to do a same approach with this, there will be some nuances that each district will add into it, but the overall, the approach to following the guidelines of what to do if a student is identified or a staff member, that is coming through the health department. And we have much more details. You guys just haven't seen those pieces of it. We want to vet it a little bit more and to give it to you, but there'll be 3 different guidance documents to provide those options. Where it does get to be varied is where districts are saying kids are coming back, some will have A-B schedules, some will do A-B and Wednesday off, some will do A-B and Friday off, some will say all kids, 3rd grade and below will be coming. So they're varying that way. But then there's also some that are starting to lean towards maybe we just aren't safe going back, and so we need to look at 100% distance learning. That's where we're starting to see the variation a little bit.
My question was also with that. It is difficult to hire teachers or parents when somebody's telling me you're going to be there 2 days a week, 3 days a week. I mean, that becomes extremely difficult.
Right.
It becomes extremely difficult if all of a sudden, let's say, and I'm just throwing one out, Parkway, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Parkway decides to go off distance learning.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with parents then?
That's what we're discussing and figuring out how to make them more meaningful.
And I'm not saying they're not meaningful, I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with
To
them?
get in that process for them, because some of them they were available, they would go in on the Zoom to help with the classroom, so we do have an approach around that, so we have to look at those pieces of it. The other thing is that, whatever methods that the districts decide to do, we want to make sure that our teachers have the support, and we're concerned about, we have very little, it's not 1 or 2 vacancies across the county for SSD, which is great, but we want to make sure all of our staff are supported, so assigning some of our coordinators or our specialists to help support our new teachers, no matter what process we're going to be going through. And that will be through our partner district teachers and our SSD teachers, so that we do have that stronger support, and we are building out how is it that paraprofessionals interact through it. Some of our policies don't allow them to do too much.
Yeah.
So we have to look at how that process will look like for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, last presentation.
No, we get 2 more.
We have 2 more, sorry there. We will be here a while.
Yes.
Our next presentation.
This one is about professional learning. As like the other ones, this is a plan about how we're going to start providing professional learning for our students, for our staff, and the preparation for them. So Dr. Molly Bolton is going to kind of walk the board through what are our different and how it's going to look like even when we start bringing our staff back on, August 13th. All right, Dr. Bolton.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Board of Directors, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Molly Bolton, and I am the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability, and I'm going to be presenting at a higher level the back-to-school professional learning. So the intent of this presentation is really just to update the board on what back-to-school professional learning will look like. So we have three major areas that I'll be covering. The new teacher orientation for the district, which will be July 29th, 30th, and 31st. The SSD School's new teacher orientation, which will be on August 7th. And then the back-to-school professional learning for our teachers in the SSD schools, which will range from August 10th through August 20th. So the process we'll be using will be virtual. We will do both synchronous, which means live, where we'll be, they'll be zooming in or socially distanced, and we will be presenting the content, or asynchronous, which will be recorded sessions that teachers can access more at their own pace, but they will have a timeline in which to complete those modules. Factors for determining which topics were asynchronous versus synchronous really depended on the content and how that content needed to be delivered. For our new teacher orientation topics, we will start with the superintendent's welcome, and that will be synchronous. We really want our new teachers to get a feel for our district and to know that they're super important, and we're so happy that they're there. So we will be doing that synchronously, as well as NEA will be doing their presentation right after Dr. Keenan's welcome. We will also be doing a meet and greet with their administrators. So teachers will be divided up by their region, and directors and area coordinators or principals will be meeting with them in a synchronous model as well, where they will welcome them, go over some specifics about their region or their district, as well as answer questions. Then our directors and our executive director of the schools, Dr. Grigsby, will be presenting universal supports, and that will also be synchronously. We feel that's very important on how to have those universal supports in place for an effective classroom. We will also be doing collaboration through family engagement on how to collaborate with our families and with our other staff. Adrienne England, our Family and Community Outreach Manager, has prepared a presentation that will be delivered asynchronously. So at some point during that week, teachers will complete that training module. We will also be doing explicit instruction synchronously with our facilitators. This is part of our BTAP program, or our Beginning Teacher Assistance Program, that is required by the state of Missouri. And so it's really important. So we will also do Sped process, and we're going to do a blended model with Sped process, where teachers will be covering material through a more asynchronous approach, but then we will offer a synchronous session where they can come together and have questions answered and go a little bit deeper with the application of that information. Then for our low incidence classrooms, our classrooms that predominantly serve students with autism or students with social emotional learning, we will have special breakout sessions for those teachers, as well as speech language pathologists and related services. So those sessions will focus in more on some of those special skills and content that they need to support. For our new teacher orientation for the SSD schools, that will be August 7th. It will also be held virtually. This will be a synchronous session as well. And this is where we go through how to access our student information system, so they know how to look up information on our students, they know how to take attendance, how to use the grade book, those sorts of things. We will also go through our curriculum and resource materials and assessments and procedures, as well as our intervention plan for our school, and then we'll offer support for them to begin working on their yearly plan. Our back to school for the SSD schools, we will have a welcome and back to school presentation, and that provides information kind of introducing, welcoming everybody back, curriculum updates, district updates, as well as specific school updates. Our teachers will also participate in our Safe School modules. We're doing that a little bit differently this year, in that we're going to be chunking those into various sections. So there'll be specific ones that teachers and parents will have to complete before students begin, but then there'll be others offered throughout the year. New materials for professional learning for selected groups. So as you might remember from the budget, we purchased new materials for social studies, K through 12, as well as ELA materials for middle school and high school. So we will be doing some synchronous learning around those new materials, as well as Plato, which is our online learning system that we use. Trauma, dyslexia, homeless, foster, EL, and migrant students, those will be offered asynchronously. And teachers will complete those and parents on their own, but they will be allotted time during those 2 weeks to have those completed. Mental health first aid, we've actually had to cancel right now. We'll be offering that a little bit later in the year. They are in the process of becoming an online training that is a synchronous training. And our trainers are going through the certification process to be able to deliver that training. So we're thinking that will be able to be offered later in the semester. And then our NCI, which we are working very closely with that company to determine. It will be some online modules as well as some very specific videos. And they're also working with them on social distancing on the crisis intervention piece. That is an overview of that. I'm ready for your questions.
So Dr. Goldman, seems to me like the most important professional learning is the one Dr. Pendergrass talked about, which is, you did, thank you. The professional learning on how to engage students during virtual instruction. To me, that is the most important thing you have to do. Where is that in your plan?
And that will be included in those 2 weeks as well. These were just the high-level trainings that we'll be offering to show about the materials and the state-required training. But there will be...
Do you have a structured training on that? Do you have a plan for that?
We are working on the plan for that. We want to ensure we're in the process of developing our overall plan, and that professional learning is a strong piece of that plan. And so you'll have more information on that when we present. And, you know.
I want to pick up and emphasize what Jan said. I graduated from but what I can't think of anything more important than if you've got a student coming out, becoming his first-year teacher, and all of a sudden, guess what? You're not going to get to be with your kids. You're going to see them online, and I know you've never done anything like this, nor did you ever do anything like this in student learn during your time when you were doing your student learning. You didn't do anything like this, and by the way, here it is. I mean, I don't think that's fair to them.
No, and we'll be working very closely, as Dr. Keenan said, with the facilitators that support them, their mentors in their schools, and their administrators to make sure they have the support that they need.
I have another question on NCI.
Yes.
How are you going to do NCI without physical contact?
Yes, and we're working very closely with the company
Are they going to, I mean, we were certified by them, and,
yeah.
you know, in case anything happened, I was thinking, like, if we get sued, we always said, well, NCI, did you go through the training and all this?
Yeah.
But now we're not sued. We have no hands-on training on this?
Our teachers will be certified. What we're looking at is they're working with the company to find ways to practice in a very safe manner. So what kind of PPE equipment do they need to be wearing in order to do these sorts of things? So they're working through the company. And those would be the people on our crisis team
Right.
that would need that. For the online training, we're really focused on de-escalation techniques. So hopefully we don't have to get to a point where we have to go hands-on. And so all of our teachers will be participating in that piece, and then those teachers or parents who are on crisis teams or who are supporting students who have behaviors that may require physical intervention, we're working on this.
Yep, on the NCI, let's go back to that one.
Sure.
'Cause I just remember, was it Northview, where we had the individuals 2 years ago where we had to let people go, and then they came to the board meeting, and it was rather tense. People had to go through the NCI training periodically. This is not a one-time shot. We will be having other individuals going through this who have already gone through it once.
It's a yearly
Is that
process.
correct? Yes.
Yes.
Can we also, if in fact we're allowed to have contact with people again and we have some semblance of normality, can we revisit the NCI training again? I just remember when we had to let go staff, and because they didn't follow the NCI directly, and we made it, part of the deal was, I remember when it was brought to the board, they had to have the NCI training, and when did you last have it, and did you pass it? Why do they do it by training modules now?
And as soon as those social distancing, as soon as it's safe to do that, we will absolutely be offering.
Okay. I'm not saying don't do it now, but I'm just saying at some point,
Yes.
this is
It's
like
really
learning, this is like reading on how to do CPR and never practicing it on a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have two questions. One is, I know you said they were gonna go over this at a later date, but mental health first aid.
Yes.
I've never heard that term before.
Yes, it is a new program that we piloted beginning last year. It is a program where we, actually myself and Adrian England, who is our family and engagement community outreach person, went to another school district in Troy, Missouri, and participated. It's a program where it's like very similar to first aid training, except it's for mental health.
So de-escalation?
It's learning overall about different mental health categories, and then also procedures that you can use. They do suicide awareness. They do, how to deal with someone when they might be in a crisis. But again, it's at a very, just like with first aid, we're going to kind of get you stabilized until we can get, medical professionals,
Right.
mental health professionals to help you. And it's just really thinking of some of those tools and training our staff in those tools. The staff that did participate last year absolutely loved it, and they felt like it very much improved our practices in dealing with students in crisis.
The other question / statement of the NCI, and one inquiry I have, and I can picture my own son right now being escorted, and he would not be nice to the other adults who are helping him, especially with their equipment. That would be the first thing he would remove from himself and others. So I just want to make sure that that's being understood and taken into consideration that, yes, they will start escorting this child down the hall with all their equipment on, but they may not get to the room with all their equipment on.
Yes.
And the worry of spit being in there, like germs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just,
And so members of our crisis team may have additional PPE equipment. Face shields, gowns, gloves, maybe additional things that the teachers in the classroom who were not dealing with students with significant behaviors and things may not need as readily.
Okay.
But our crisis team definitely would have those extra precaution
Yeah.
pieces.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, budget, thank you.
All right, so our last presentation is from Dr. Hogg, and he's going to be presenting about our budget adjustments. So this is our first meeting with our new COO, and he's going to update us on where we left off in June and where we are currently going into with some of the adjustments that are needed. He's also going to update all of us on some of the changes that are coming from DESE with the funding and the impact of the COVID.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Cuneo, Directors of the Board of Education, Dr. Keenan. My name is Jeff Hogg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. The information tonight will be additional increases with expenditures and some reductions to revenue. This information is as of what we know as of July 2020. So in June, when the fiscal year ended, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education withheld $123 million from our June payment. Given the state of the economy and the economic downturn that we're still under, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is going to have another withholding with our July payment for that same amount of $123 million. That is for all schools across the state of Missouri, including ones that are considered hold harmless. So that $123 million will be absorbed statewide. What that means for us is our DESE payment was reduced by $1.6 million in June, and it'll be reduced by $1.6 million in July. The governor stated in a conference call early in June that he hoped that this would be the only withholding for this fiscal year. We're going to continue to monitor that and look at revenues as they're coming in. DESE has promised guidance prior to our first July payment, so that should be coming out any day. We're also going to continue to monitor. Classroom Trust Fund and Prop C. Those are other sources of revenue for us as well. We're just too early into the new fiscal year to have any kind of real guidance on that yet. Clean Tech. As part of the reentry plan, the district entered into a contract for extra cleaning, additional cleaning with our current custodial company, Clean Tech. An additional cost of the district of $54,000 a month will ensure that we have additional cleaning in all of our buildings. Most of that $54,000 will be extra staffing so that we have an assurance that our building is being cleaned every night to provide for the safety of our students and our staff. The agreement is monthly and can be terminated at any point. Also, so some estimates here, if we do this for 6 months, we'll look at about $324,000 of incurred cost. If we do it for a full year, we'd be at about $648,000. So again, this is an expenditure that we will monitor and look at as we go, as far as, one, are our needs being met, and is it still a necessity at any point? We have a budget adjustment for Southview School. When budgets were being entered, Southview entered $13,000. As the budgets were finalized, it was inadvertently changed to $2,000. We're just going to go ahead and correct that back to the $13,000 that it was. Snow removal. The district currently contracts for outside snow removal with Pooltron. After studying the cost of snow removal, the facilities department would like to bring snow removal in-house, and they'd like to do that for 2 reasons. The first, over the course of the next 3.5 to 4 years, we can see savings in snow removal. After that 4th year, we'll see significant savings in snow removal. And then secondly, that when there is a winter event, we then control our resources and we control the timing of when we remove that snow. And that's a big thing. So if you include this year's allocated budget, over the last 4 years, the district spent $668,215 on snow and ice removal. By bringing the process in-house, over the next 4 years, we'll spend approximately $557,904, saving the district roughly $111,000. So after the year 4, like I said, we will have just about everything paid off. We'll only be looking at building upkeep, vehicle upkeep, and the purchase of salt. And for reference, right now, we pay $150 a ton for salt. when we're purchasing that on our own, we'll pay about $70 a ton for salt, and we buy about 200 tons of salt a year. So just there alone is some significant savings. So to bring snow removal in-house, we will need to have an initial cost, an initial purchase. We'll need to purchase 2 loaders, 2 dump trucks, salt spreaders, and build 2 storage buildings. That's the initial cost, but that will, over time, provide us savings as we move forward. Labor cost will not increase, so as we look at the savings, it's a true savings. And here's how that'll work. So when there's a winter weather event, we currently have all maintenance department workers report for duty. If they come in before the school day to get the building ready, they're paid overtime because then they'll work their normal shift. If they come in, get the building ready, we don't have school, or if they come in when we've already called off school, they're paid for their normal time. Nothing will change with that, so we will not increase the hours paid to maintenance staff.
So they come in and do what right now?
So,
Because in the future, they're gonna be spreading salt and getting things cleaned up. What do they do now when they report?
so currently when they report, our maintenance department is in charge of clearing sidewalks, spreading salt, shoveling snow from the walks, while Pooltron does the parking lots. What we're going to do is we're going to, with this purchase of equipment, we are going to have 5 or 6 members of that maintenance crew change their responsibilities from shoveling and snow removal of the sidewalks to being in trucks and plowing the parking lots as well. So there is, in talking to facilities, removing the 5 or 6 from the sidewalks and salt to the plows will not hurt our efficiency with getting our buildings ready.
Okay, even though they're doing significantly more work, you're saying it's not more man hours?
Correct.
Because currently they already do the overtime with the sidewalk pieces if they come in. And so they're just gonna transfer, they're gonna just reassign 5 to 6 of them where they would have those 5 to 6 to clear it out and then move it into other projects. So it's the same budget because they've been paying them overtime for the last several years to do these some of these pieces.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure I totally buy that they're doing more work with the same men, the same amount of hours, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily more work, it's probably just, it's just equivalent of if I'm doing shoveling or if I'm doing it in the truck. It's just shifting them over.
All right, so again, this is an initial upfront cost, but over time, we will save money for the district. Personal protective equipment. The district has put in numerous hours of planning and ordering personal protective equipment for the safety of our staff and students. The distribution center has done a great job organizing and preparing our PPE for distribution for the beginning of the year. We've already ordered approximately $1 million in masks, hand sanitizer, cleaners, face shields, bags, gloves, sanitary wipes. And at this point, the district estimates that an additional $2 million will be needed to provide a safe, clean environment and safety for our staff and students as we progress throughout this year. North County Tech, in the spring of 2020, the district ordered 350 Chromebooks for North County Tech. Due to COVID closures, CDW did not process the order, so the Chromebooks were not shipped and the district was not billed. So the purchase of 350 Chromebooks for North Tech will be in addition to the budget for this year at $119,000. So as we look in totality, the FY21 budget was approved with a $14.347 million planned deficit. The majority of that deficit includes increased costs for health insurance. With the items on the prior slide, the district will spend about an additional $4.208 or $028 million. This additional expenditure, along with the withholdings from the foundation formula in July, will equate to a district deficit spending of about $19.975 million for the next fiscal year. This concludes my report. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions at this point.
I've got one, just as curiosity. When we mention about deep cleaning, what does that mean compared to cleaning?
So what it allows is it will allow more manpower, more people on the job, and they can take their time to clean certain areas as opposed to just wiping them over. They can clean them. Plus, there's also increased bathroom cleaning that's required every 2 hours. It has to be logged and tracked. That's something that we are going to continue to look at.
Yep. And,
Perfect.
Yeah, so prior to Jeff coming in, I did oversee custodial, kind of this transition, so worked with Rich Carver with this added contract for clean tech. And so really, it boils down to 4 big things that this added contract's going to do. First, it's going to create in each a COVID team that's specifically going to move from classroom to classroom, sanitizing surfaces that normally are cleaned on an as-needed basis, like desks. Every night, they're not cleaning every desk in every classroom in normal circumstances. However, in these circumstances, we would need to go through and clean those hard surfaces every night. So that's something that's not currently happening. Second thing that COVID crew is going to do is they're going to mop every floor in the Sped Buildings nightly. So Ackerman, Northview, Southview, because how often our students wind up on the floor in those buildings, those floors become a frequently touched surface. Frequently touched surfaces need to be cleaned on a daily basis. Right now, mopping is happening weekly and then spot mopping as necessary. So that's going to be a big added need for manpower is mopping. North Tech and South Tech, they're going to go from mopping weekly to mopping every other day. So that's another thing that's not happening currently. In addition to that, the third thing is they're going to have an additional supervisor for each of the regions who's basically making sure this COVID team is doing all of the sanitation properly. Because they're going to be doing some new protocols, and especially because even since March, what custodial has been doing to clean our buildings to now, it's been a moving target. This was the CDC guidelines in March. It changes in April. It changes again in June. So it's constant training and retraining on what's the right way to clean the building. And then the last piece of the puzzle for this group is they're going to be basically taking the existing staff and teaching them all of these new cleaning methods. So that way, ideally, we get to a point where we can phase out some of that additional COVID crew, and then some of your other shifts can pick up some of those roles and responsibilities. So that's why this is on an as-needed basis, and it was a month-to-month, because depending on what our buildings need, depending on what the crew is able to accomplish, that dollar amount could decrease as we move through the year, as people become more accustomed to those pieces and processes. The other thing that the plan does get at as well, there's an added increase for chemicals and supplies. They're going to be going through more mops. They're going to be going through more cleaning chemicals than what they currently use under normal circumstances. So that's what that dollar amount gets at.
I have one more question about the snow removal. What is the salt buildings going to be?
They'll be located, one, there's a maintenance by our vet tech in the north part of the district, so they'll construct one there, and they're going to put one at the maintenance shed down in the south part as well.
Thank you.
And another question about that snow removal. How many trucks is the current contractor using to clean our schools?
So I asked the same question. They said anywhere, they could have up to 12. I asked if that was ever the case, and they said no. Generally in that 5 to 6 range, and that's what we would put on the lots as well.
So we were talking about, buying 2 loads.
We currently have some already, Chuck.
We do.
Oh, we have some already.
Yes. I'm sorry. We have those 5 or 6 trucks that we would need to buy the spreaders for the back. The 2 dump trucks and the 2 loaders would be on the sites where the salt buildings would be.
I have a question. CDW was unable to provide the Chromebooks. Are we trying them again, or are we going with a new company?
We are going to put that same order through with them. It had to do with shipping and closures and inability to have that product shipped at that time or that product made at that time. So it's not really with the company, it was just the timing. So when we go with them again, we should be able to get them.
We feel confident they'll be able to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, you made it. it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Moving right along. Would someone like to make a motion to approve consensual items?
Second.
Do I hear a second? All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. All righty, action items. Compensation adjustment for 10-month teacher level staff. Okay.
Like to move approval?
Second.
The executive summary on this, the proposed 2020-2021 compensation increase for 10-month teacher staff includes step movement on the salary schedule for all eligible staff, and a $1,000 increase for those at the top staff. This increase represents a 3% overall expenditure increase for this group of employees over the compensation structure currently in place. Current cost to the district is $188,521,372. We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I have a clarifying question, just based on the report we just read. I just want to make sure I understood things. As of our expectations right now, we are running a deficit, meaning that our expenditures that we're expecting in fiscal year 21 are going to exceed our budget by $19.975 million.
Of what we know so far. Yes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Snow removal initiative. Jan, pardon, would someone like to move for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Jan?
My questions were answered in the context of the.
Great.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Lindenwood University Field Placement Student Teaching Clinical Experience Agreement. Would someone like to move to accept?
Second.
All righty, Jan? Joan? Jan?
It's a good call.
There were three of these sorts of
Yes.
agreements on tonight's agenda. I was just curious if this was part of our new initiative to, create relationships to,
Yes.
teachers that
Yes.
this represents. Okay.
Yes, we are strongly encouraging partnerships with universities in order to get students that are seeking degrees in the field of education, whether that be teaching, SLPs, or other related services, to come in and do their practicums, field experiences, and student teaching in our schools. And we're really making a push with our universities for them to place them in our SSD schools in order to give them that true exposure to our district, and it helps us develop a relationship with them before they complete their program, and helps us with recruitment.
That's great. And who were the three, Lindenwood? There were three on tonight's agenda.
Yes, there was one with Lindenwood, there was one with UMSL, I believe, and then one with University of Missouri Columbia.
Are there others that we'll see come forward, or are these the three
Yes.
starting with?
Yes,
Okay.
there are others that will come forward. We reach out to universities frequently, and typically, as long as we can adhere to the MOU guidelines, we bring those forward to the board. And then the only caveat that we will have differently this school year is that any safety guidelines that we put in place for our staff, whether it be PPE or social distancing or cleaning and sanitizing, that we would have the same expectations added to our universities, that they would convey those to the students, and we would expect those students to adhere to those procedures and guidelines.
And it's really a great initiative. I appreciate you getting that going.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, would someone like to make a proposed meeting of the Board of Education on August 11th and August 25th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I need a roll call on this.
Director Esmond,
Yes.
Director Faulkner,
Yes.
Director Goodman,
Yes.
Director Morgan,
Yes.
Director Patrick,
Yes.
Vice President Brown,
Yes.
President Cuneo,
Yes. All righty, motion carries. Would someone like to make a motion of the approval of minutes of our last meetings?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Executive meeting action items. Following items were approved in tonight's executive meeting: employment, resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, extra duty pay, reemployment of homebound teachers for the 2020-2021 school year. And my favorite, the employment of extended school year staff for the summer 2000. Non-paid leaves of absences and 2 worker compensation settlements. All right, board's requests and response to requests. Do you have anything on the table? Board communications, anyone? Thank everybody for coming. I know that it's been a lengthy meeting, it's been a productive meeting. Calendar of events, I'll let everyone take a look at that.
Graduation's coming up, the week of the 27th. So, some of those are gonna be socially distanced, there's gonna be drive-throughs, so we have different options, so we want the assignment, we'll make sure we catch that in the Friday memo for the,
Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Would you like to second that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Please be safe out there. Be healthy. Thank you, everyone.